what I love, Meico, about your work is that you put things into frameworks and terms that we can
Yes.
easily digest and understand. And so I want to start off, so many of us are experiencing what you call social impact grief, which is the emotional toll, as I understand it, of fighting for change in a world that often resists it. And that
Yeah.
really struck with me. I feel like I've been fighting that since the 90s.
Yeah.
So, how can we process and navigate that grief in a
Yeah.
productive, like a healthy way?
Yeah. So just taking a step back and
Yeah.
unpacking this idea of social impact grief. So there is what many of us are familiar with, which is, I guess, individual grief, right? Or maybe the individual experience of grief, where maybe we're grieving the loss of a loved one, we're grieving the loss of a pet, for example. It's something that's very tangible, and we have a normalized way of thinking about it, right? So if you say,
Like the
"Oh,
seven
like my,"
stages or something.
exactly, and you say like, "If my dog died, or my mom transitioned," people understand, and we have sort of in our culture, we have a way of sort of socializing people around that.
Mhm.
Social impact grief falls into the bucket of what experts call collective grief, and so I call it social impact grief in the sub bucket of collective grief, where we are collectively having this experience of grief together, in part because the nature of the work that we do as mission driven folks is a bit different in terms of how we approach work, right? We lead with our hearts, right? We give everything that we have to the missions. For many of us, it's deeply personal why we do the work that we do. And so when we see what's happening in the world right now, and to your point, doing this work in a world that sometimes seems to resist it, um, there is what experts call sort of a form of ambiguous loss, right? Where it's intangible, right? You're feeling things, you're thinking things, the things that are sort of showing up in your body in terms of how the grief shows up and how we process it. But we don't have necessarily language or framing around it, right? And so sometimes it can feel like we're being gaslit, right? Maybe we're not sure that what we're experiencing is valid. So the first place that I want to start is by simply acknowledging that what you are experiencing is normal, right? It's a natural response to loss of any kind, whether that is the loss of a loved one, something that's more tangible, or whether it's a non-death loss or an ambiguous loss, like what we're talking about with social impact grief, where we're grieving the loss of progress that we have been fighting generations to make, right? And it feels like it's being undone before our eyes. We're grieving the loss of a future that we may never have, that we thought we were going to have, or that our children may never have, that we always dreamed for them, right? And there might not be closure to this type of loss, right? And so that's another aspect of it that makes it
Right.
particularly challenging. And so the first place that I start with this is, again, normalizing and simply acknowledging however you're feeling, however you're expressing right now in this moment is perfectly okay. And we also get to acknowledge the hard truth that, the Lion King reminds us is part of the circle of life, right? Loss, disappointment, death, all of these things are a natural part of life. And part of the hope that we have is that because of that, we're actually built to be resilient. We're actually built to be able to navigate these kinds of losses, right? That doesn't mean it's going to be easy, right? That doesn't mean that we're going to wave a magic wand and have everything be okay right now. But we have history, right? We have ancestors that have come before us that have fought long and hard, that have navigated, that have cultivated resilience. We have models in that.